The wind screamed across the mountains like a wild animal. Snow fell heavy from the dark sky, covering the sharp rocks and deep paths. In the middle of this storm, an alien mother walked with her small child. Her arms were shaking as she held the child close, wrapping her torn cloth around him. The mother's skin glowed faintly under the dim light of the storm, but her strength was fading fast. They had been walking for days without food, only drinking melting snow. The mountain was cruel. Every step was hard. The snow pulled their feet down, and the icy wind cut their faces. The child's breathing was weak, his little chest rising slowly, as if every breath was a battle. He whispered, "Mother, I am hungry." His voice broke the mother's heart, but she had no answer. She pressed him to her chest, whispering back, "Hold on, my star. We will find something." Yet she herself did not believe those words anymore. Suddenly the ground trembled. A part of the mountain cracked and snow slid down like a river. The mother screamed and held her child tight as they both slipped into a dark opening. Rocks fell, snow poured in, and in the next moment silence came. They had fallen into a cave. The cave was dark, cold, and endless. The air smelled of damp stone. The mother tried to stand, her knees bleeding from the fall. The child shivered, his small hands clutching her arms. The storm outside grew louder, and the entrance slowly filled with snow. Their way back was closing. The mother realized the truth. They were trapped. She carried her child deeper into the cave, searching for safety. Strange sounds echoed in the darkness, the drip of water, the whisper of the wind through cracks, and something else. Something moving. The mother's heart pounded. Were there beasts here? She had heard stories of mountain predators, creatures that hunted in the shadows. But she could not turn back. She had no choice. She placed the child on a flat stone and tried to warm him with her body. The child's eyes were tired, his skin pale. "Mama," he whispered, "will we die here?" The mother's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him no, to promise life, but her lips trembled. Instead, she kissed his forehead and said, "I will not let anything happen to you." Hours passed, but inside the cave, time felt endless. Hunger grew like fire in their stomachs, yet no food was there. The mother searched the ground, hoping for roots, moss, anything. But the cave was barren, only rocks and frozen water. She returned to her child empty-handed. Her body shook, not from cold alone, but from despair. She remembered the village they had left. They had been running, chased by war and fire. Their home was gone, their family scattered. The mountains were their only chance of escape. But now, in this cave, escape seemed like a cruel dream. The mother held her child again, rocking him as he cried softly. Each tear burned her soul. The storm outside grew stronger, howling through the cracks of the cave. Snow blocked more of the entrance. The cave became darker, colder, and quieter. The mother could hear only two things: the beating of her heart and the weak breaths of her child. She closed her eyes and prayed silently to any power that might hear. But prayers did not bring food. Prayers did not bring light. The child began to cough, a dry sound that echoed like thunder in her ears. She tried to cover him, to warm him, but her own body had grown too weak. She pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "Please stay with me, just a little longer." The silence of the cave was heavy, but then there was something. A sound, far away. Not the storm, not the drip of water. Something different. A faint hum like a machine, like footsteps on stone. The mother froze, her ears alert. She hugged her child close, fear and hope mixing in her heart. What was it, an animal? A monster, or someone else? Her eyes searched the darkness, but all she saw were shadows. Her heart pounded louder than the storm outside. She knew one thing: whatever it was coming closer. And so in that cold mountain cave, with death waiting at every corner, a small spark of suspense was born. Someone or something was near. The cave was silent except for the soft sound of water dripping from the ceiling. The alien mother sat on the cold stone floor, holding her weak child close. The storm outside roared like a giant beast, but inside the cave the silence felt worse. It was heavy, endless, and full of fear. The child stirred in her arms, his small eyes opening slowly. They were dim, without the bright spark they once had. He whispered, "Mother, I am so hungry." His voice was thin, like a fading flame. The mother's chest ached. She had no food to give, no strength left to promise. Her lips trembled as she answered, "I know, my star. Be strong, please." The child's tears rolled down his pale cheeks, shining in the dim light. Each tear cut into her heart like a knife. She wiped them away with shaking fingers, but new ones kept falling. The sound of his quiet sobs filled the cave, echoing against the walls. The mother tried to hum an old lullaby, something from their home, but her voice cracked. She remembered how the child once laughed, how he used to run under the twin suns of their world. Now he could barely lift his head. The mother looked around the cave again, desperate. Her eyes searched every corner, every shadow. She hoped to see something, anything that could save them. But all she saw were jagged rocks and pools of freezing water. She dipped her hand into one pool and touched it to the child's lips. He drank a little, but his stomach growled painfully after. Water could not replace food. Then came a sound. Low. Strange. It echoed through the cave like a whisper from the earth. The mother froze. She pressed her child close and listened. Was it the storm? No, this sound was different. It was a scrape, then a heavy thud, then silence. Her breath caught. The child opened his eyes wide and whispered, "Something is here." The mother's instinct screamed. She pulled her child against her chest and crouched low, her eyes scanning the shadows. For a moment, nothing moved. Then she saw it, a flicker like a shadow passing quickly at the edge of the darkness. Her heart raced. Was it a beast? She had heard of mountain hunters, creatures with glowing eyes and sharp teeth that stalked caves in storms. She held her child tighter, whispering, "Do not cry now. Be still." But the child could not stop. His small body shook, his sobs breaking the silence again. The sound echoed down the cave like a call. The mother's fear grew. What if the sound drew predators closer? What if the storm had not been the only danger? The strange noise came again, this time closer, a soft hum almost like metal against stone. The mother crouched lower, shielding the child with her body. She could feel his little heart racing against her chest. Her own heart pounded so loud she thought the cave itself could hear. The child whispered through tears, "Is it coming to eat us?" His words tore at her soul. She wanted to say no. She wanted to promise safety. But she could not lie anymore. Her silence was the only answer. The shadows shifted. A faint glow appeared far down the tunnel. The mother gasped. It was not the eyes of a beast, it was something else. A dim light moving slowly as if held by someone. The glow grew brighter step by step. The mother's hands shook. Was it a hunter? Another enemy, or someone who could help? The child's tears stopped for a moment. His weak voice asked, "Mother, who is it?" She did not answer. She could not. Her heart was torn between fear and hope. The glow moved closer, and with it came the sound again. Metal clicking on stone. The figure was still hidden by shadows, but the light was steady, warm, almost human. The mother's breath caught in her throat. She had seen beings with such lights before, beings from the stars. But what were they doing here in the deadly mountains? The child looked up at her with wide eyes, his tears still wet. "Maybe they have food," he whispered. His voice was so innocent, so full of desperate hope that the mother's chest tightened again. She wanted to believe him, but she also knew danger often wore the mask of hope. The figure stopped moving. The glow hung in the air, casting long shadows across the cave walls. The silence stretched. The mother's arms tightened around her child. Her body shook, but her eyes stayed fixed on the light. At that moment, time seemed to freeze. The child's breathing slowed, his tears drying on his cheeks. The storm outside raged, but inside the cave only one truth mattered. Someone or something was here. And with that truth came a terrifying question. Would this presence bring life? Or death? Far above the storm, under the iron sky, a human walked alone through the mountains. His name was Daniel, a young explorer from Earth. His breath rose in clouds as he climbed over the icy rocks, snow crunching under his boots. The night was cold, but his eyes stayed sharp. He carried a scanner in one hand, its screen glowing faintly in the dark. Daniel's mission was simple: patrol the mountain range, study the terrain, and send reports back to his team at base camp. It was routine work, yet dangerous. The storms here could kill in minutes, and the caves were known for sudden rockfalls. But Daniel was not afraid. He had walked harder roads before. As he moved deeper into the mountain path, his scanner beeped. A weak signal flashed across the screen. Daniel frowned. It was not the reading of stone or snow. It was life. 2 life forms. Very faint, almost gone. He stopped in his tracks, staring at the screen. His orders were clear. Observe the environment, avoid interference with unknown species, and never break galactic law. The law was strict, no helping aliens, no changing their fate. Humans were watched closely by the Galactic Council. Any mistake could bring punishment, but the scanner beeped again, weaker this time. Daniel looked at the numbers and felt his chest tighten. Whoever those life forms were, they were dying. Slowly. He stood still, the snow whipping around him, thinking of the rules. His mind argued, walk away, report it, stay safe. But his heart whispered something else. Go. Someone needs you. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered his sister on Earth, a small child once sick in a hospital bed. He remembered sitting by her side, holding her hand, listening to her say, "Don't leave me alone." He had promised her then he would never turn away from someone in need. His eyes opened. The law did not matter now. A life mattered more. With steady steps, Daniel followed the signal. The wind grew stronger, the storm howling like a beast. His flashlight cut through the snow, showing only white chaos ahead. But the scanner guided him, its signal leading him closer to the cave. At last, he reached a cliff where snow had collapsed. A dark opening yawned at the base of the rock. The scanner beeped louder. This was the place. Daniel tightened his gloves and crouched low. His instincts warned him. Caves were dangerous, filled with shadows and secrets. But he pushed forward, his boots crunching on stone. Inside, the cave swallowed him in silence. His flashlight beam lit up wet walls and dripping rocks. The sound of water echoed through the tunnels. He walked carefully, each step echoing in the cold air. The scanner blinked. Yes, the life forms were near. Then he heard it. A sound that froze him in place. The soft, weak cry of a child. Daniel's chest tightened. He raised his light higher, moving toward the sound. And there, in the corner of the cave, he saw them. A woman. No, not human. Her skin glowed faintly, strange and pale. Her arms clutched a small child close to her chest. Both looked weak, starving, half broken by the storm. The woman's eyes widened at the sight of him. She pushed the child behind her, shielding him with her own body, her eyes full of fear. Daniel stopped. His flashlight glowed between them, casting long shadows on the walls. For a moment, time froze. Two worlds stared at each other, human and alien, strangers bound by the same fear of death. The child whimpered again, a soft sound of hunger. Daniel's heart cracked. He slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a food ration. He held it out, his hand steady, his voice calm. "It's food, safe, please take it." The mother's eyes narrowed. She did not move. Her body shook, but she stood strong, protecting her child. Daniel did not step closer. He stayed where he was, hand extended, showing no threat. The cave was silent, except for the drip of water and the storm outside. The child whimpered again, louder this time. His little hand tugged at his mother's cloth, eyes locked on the food. Finally, the mother reached out with trembling fingers. She snatched the ration quickly, as if afraid he might take it back. She smelled it, studied it, then slowly pressed it to her child's lips. The child took a bite, a tiny bite, then another. His eyes lit up faintly, life sparking again inside him. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Relief washed over him. The mother's eyes softened just for a moment. Their gazes met, still full of mistrust, but now mixed with something else. A question. A flicker of hope. Daniel lowered his flashlight, his voice gentle. "I don't want to hurt you. I just want to help." The storm raged outside, but inside that cave something had begun. A fragile bridge, a spark of connection. Daniel knew the law would not forgive him for this. But as he watched the child eat, he whispered to himself, "Let them punish me later. Tonight saving them is all that matters." The cave was heavy with silence after the child's first bites of food. The mother still kept her arms wrapped around him, as if the human standing before them could suddenly turn into a threat. Her glowing eyes watched every movement Daniel made. One wrong step, she thought, and she would fight, even if she had no strength left. Daniel lowered himself slowly to the ground, keeping a safe distance. His flashlight rested on the stone, throwing soft light across the walls. He wanted to appear smaller, less dangerous. The storm's howl outside grew fainter here, but inside, the tension between them was loud, almost alive. The child chewed weakly, tiny hands gripping the ration pack. Each bite gave him strength, but each swallow seemed to remind the mother of her helplessness. She had failed to protect him, failed to feed him, Now a stranger, a human, was the reason her child still breathed. Her pride burned, but her love for her child was greater than her fear. Daniel spoke softly, his voice calm. "You're safe here. I won't harm you," the mother did not reply. Her language was different. Her throat-shaped words he could not understand. But her eyes spoke clearly. "Why are you here? What do you want from us?" The child looked up at his mother, then at Daniel. His small voice broke the silence. "Mama." He gave food. "Maybe he is good." His words were faint, but they were enough to carve a crack in the wall of fear between them. Daniel opened his pack again, pulling out a small thermal blanket. He unfolded it slowly, making sure not to startle them. The mother's eyes narrowed. When he slid it across the stone floor, she flinched, ready to shield her child. But the blanket stopped at her feet. Warm steam rose from it, chasing away some of the cave's chill. She touched it carefully, suspicious, but the warmth was real. She wrapped it around the child, who sighed softly, almost smiling for the first time since they had entered the cave. Daniel watched them, his heart heavy. He knew he was breaking every rule, but seeing the child's thin frame wrapped in warmth, he felt no regret. The mother's gaze softened just a little. She studied the human's face, his strange skin, his tired eyes, his steady breath. He looked different, but not cruel. For the first time, she wondered if this stranger was truly a danger. Or a miracle. Still, mistrust lingered. She raised a hand pointing at him, then at the cave entrance, then made a motion like pushing away. Daniel understood. She wanted him gone. He shook his head firmly. "No, the storm is too strong. If I leave now, I die out there." He tapped his chest, then pointed at the ground. "Here, I stay." The mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She did not like it, but she knew he was right. Outside, the storm screamed louder, snow pounding against the blocked entrance. The cave was their prison, and now their shared shelter. For a while, they sat in silence, the only sound being the child's quiet chewing and the distant roar of the blizzard. Shadows danced on the cave walls, painted by the faint beam of Daniel's light. Then suddenly a sound echoed deeper in the cave, a low growl, slow, heavy. The mother stiffened at once, pulling her child closer. Her ears had heard that sound before. It was not the storm. It was alive. Daniel's hand moved to his side, pulling out a compact plasma tool. Its soft blue glow lit up his face. The mother's eyes widened, recognizing it as a weapon. She hissed softly, warning him with her stare not to harm them, but Daniel raised a finger to his lips. "Shh!" The growl came again, louder this time, closer. The mother's breath quickened. The child whimpered, burying his face in her chest. Daniel stood slowly, his light sweeping across the dark tunnel ahead. He saw movement, shadows shifting against the wall. His muscles tensed. Whatever lived here had smelled weakness, smelled fear, and was coming closer. The mother whispered in her own tongue, words Daniel could not understand, but he knew they were prayers. Then two glowing eyes appeared in the darkness, yellow, hungry. The creature stepped forward, its claws scraping the stone. Its long body slithered low, teeth sharp as daggers. It was a mountain predator, one of the beasts that hunted caves during storms. The mother gasped, holding her child tighter, ready to fight with nothing but her bare hands. Daniel moved between them and the creature, his weapon steady. The predator growled, saliva dripping from its jaw. It circled slowly, testing. Daniel aimed carefully, his finger hovering over the trigger. His heart raced. One mistake and they would all be dead. In that moment, something unspoken passed between the human and the alien mother. She realized he was not here to harm them. He was here to protect them. Her fear shifted into something else. Trust, fragile but real. The child peeked from his mother's arms, eyes wide, whispering, "Mama, he will save us." The predator lunged, and in the heart of that frozen cave, the first true contact between human and alien was sealed in fire, fear and courage. The beast's roar filled the cave, shaking the stone walls. Its yellow eyes burned in the darkness as it lunged forward, claws scraping the rock. The mother cried out, wrapping her arms around her child, ready to be torn apart. But Daniel moved first. He raised his plasma tool and a burst of blue light cut through the dark. The beam hit the ground near the beast, sending sparks across the stone. The creature screeched, pulling back for a moment, but its hunger was stronger than fear. It crouched low, preparing to strike again. Daniel's heart pounded. His weapon was small, meant for cutting rock, not fighting predators. One wrong shot and it would fail, but he had no choice. If he ran, the mother and child would die. If he stayed, he might die too, but at least he would not abandon them. The predator lunged again. Daniel rolled to the side, firing another beam. This time, the blast grazed its shoulder. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. The beast screamed in rage, its claws slashing against the stone, sending shards flying. The child whimpered in his mother's arms. She held him tighter, whispering in her own tongue, her voice trembling but steady, trying to calm him. Yet her eyes never left the human. For the first time, she was not afraid of him. She was afraid for him. Daniel shouted, his voice echoing, "Stay back." He aimed once more, but the beast was fast. It darted through the shadows, circling him. Its claws scraped the walls, its body low, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The cave shook as the storm outside pressed harder against the blocked entrance. Snow began to slide further inside, covering the ground in a white layer. The mother realized something terrible. The cave was filling. If they stayed, the storm would bury them alive. She looked at Daniel, fear and urgency in her eyes. She pointed at the entrance, then at the snow, making a motion as if choking. Daniel understood. Not only the beast, but the storm itself would kill them if they did not escape. The predator growled, stepping closer. Daniel fired again, this time hitting the ground near its feet. Sparks flew and the creature jumped back, but its rage grew stronger. It was only a matter of time before it struck with full force. Daniel's mind raced. He could not fight the beast forever. They had to leave now. He shouted over the storm's echo, "We can't stay here." He pointed to the mother, then to the child, then toward the blocked entrance. His eyes begged her to understand. She nodded slowly, pulling her child close. She would follow him. The beast roared again, charging forward. Daniel blasted another beam, forcing it back for only seconds. In that moment, he sprinted toward the cave mouth, grabbing a tool from his belt. It was a compact excavator used for breaking ice and stone. He jammed it into the snow, blocking the exit, and activated it. The tool roared, heat slicing through the frozen wall. Snow hissed and melted, steam rising in the cold air. But it was slow, too slow. The predator screeched, rushing toward them again. The mother, desperate, grabbed a jagged stone from the ground. She stood between the beast and her child, her arms trembling but ready. Her voice rose in a cry, half courage, half fear. Daniel turned just in time to see the beast leap. He dropped his tool, fired one last shot, and the beam struck the creature's chest. The cave filled with a blinding flash. The predator screamed, twisting in pain before crashing to the ground. Its body twitched once, then went still. Silence fell, broken only by the storm outside. Daniel stood panting, his arms heavy, his weapon sparking from overuse. The mother stared at him, her chest rising and falling fast. She had seen him risk his life, not for himself, but for them. Her fear was gone now. In its place was something new, respect, but the danger was not over. Snow was still pouring into the cave, the blocked entrance cracking under the storm's weight. Daniel grabbed his tool again and shouted, "Help me!" Even though he knew she did not understand his words, his tone was enough. The mother placed her child on the warm blanket and joined him. Side by side, human and alien clawed at the snow and ice, breaking it, melting it, pushing it away. Their breaths came hard, their hands raw, but they did not stop. Finally, a crack of light broke through. Cold air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of the storm. Daniel pushed harder, clearing more snow, until at last an opening wide enough appeared. He turned, picking up the child with careful arms, and looked at the mother. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Together, they stepped out into the storm. The wind howled, snow blinding their eyes, but compared to the cave, it felt like freedom. Behind them, the predator's body lay silent, and the cave began to collapse under the weight of snow. Daniel tightened his grip on the child, his other arm guiding the mother. Every step through the blizzard was heavy, but his mind was clear. He had chosen his path. He would get them out or die trying. The storm raged, the mountains trembled, but a new bond had been forged. Human and alien, once strangers, now fought as one against nature itself. And deep inside the mother's heart, for the first time since she had entered the mountains, a thought sparked. Perhaps they might survive after all. The storm swallowed them as soon as they stepped out of the cave. Snow whipped across the mountainside, biting into their skin like knives. The sky was a wall of white, and the wind screamed so loud it drowned out their thoughts. Daniel tightened his arms around the child, holding him close against his chest. The little boy's body felt far too light, his breathing weak but steady. Beside him, the mother stumbled through the snow. Her steps were heavy, her eyes squinting against the storm, but she did not fall. She kept close to Daniel, every ounce of her strength focused on keeping up. The mountain behind them groaned, collapsing under the weight of ice. If they had stayed inside the cave, they would have been buried alive. But now another danger stood before them. Time. Daniel knew the child could not last much longer without real food and medical care. The ration he had given earlier was only a spark. It would not keep him alive for long. Every minute in this storm drained the child's strength. Daniel's mind raced as he pushed forward through the blinding snow. He reached for his communicator, pressing the button on his wrist. "Base, this is Daniel. I've got 2 survivors. Repeat, 2 survivors. They're weak. We need emergency pickup now." Static answered him, broken by the storm's interference. He pressed again, his voice louder, more desperate. "Do you hear me? A mother and child alive. They'll die if we don't act fast." At last, a voice cracked through the noise. "Daniel, confirm." "Are they human?" Daniel clenched his jaw. He looked at the alien mother, her arms shaking as she walked, her glowing eyes filled with exhaustion but still burning with will. He looked at the child, his small face pressed against Daniel's chest, too weak to even open his eyes. "No," Daniel whispered into the communicator, then louder with steel in his voice. "They're not human, but they're alive, and they need us." Silence stretched for a long, painful moment. Then the voice came back, cold and sharp. "You know the law, Daniel. We cannot interfere. Helping alien species is forbidden by the Galactic Council. Leave them. Do you copy?" Daniel's heart pounded. He stopped walking for a moment, snow swirling around him. The mother stumbled and nearly fell, but he steadied her with one arm. He looked down at the child, who gave a faint cough, then fell silent again. Leave them? How could he? His breath shook with rage as he pressed the button again. "Do you understand what you're saying? This is a child. He's dying in my arms. If I leave him, his blood is on all of us." The voice grew harder. "Daniel, this is not Earth. This is galactic territory. If you break the law, you will answer for it. Think carefully." Daniel's teeth clenched so hard it hurt. He shouted into the storm, not caring if the whole galaxy heard him. "Then let them punish me later. But I won't let a child die in front of me. Not today." He cut the communicator off, his breath heavy. The mother had stopped walking, staring at him with wide eyes. She had not understood his words, but she understood his tone. He had chosen them over his own kind. For the first time, her hand reached out and touched his arm. It was weak, trembling, but it was not a gesture of fear. It was trust. Daniel nodded at her, tightening his grip on the child. "We'll make it," he said, though his voice was raw. "I promise." The storm did not ease. Each step forward felt like carrying the weight of the mountain itself. Snow piled around their legs, the wind nearly knocking them down. Daniel's muscles screamed with pain, but he forced them to keep moving. Hours blurred into a nightmare. The child's breathing grew fainter, his small body limp in Daniel's arms. Panic gnawed at him. If they did not reach the camp soon, it would be too late. At last, through the white curtain of snow, Daniel saw a faint glow, light from the human base. His heart leapt. He shouted, though his voice was nearly lost in the wind. "There! We're close." The mother raised her head, hope flickering in her exhausted eyes. They pushed harder, step by painful step, until the base's walls loomed ahead. But Daniel's relief did not last. As they neared the gates, figures appeared in the snow. Human guards, weapons in hand. Their faces were hidden behind visors, but their voices were sharp. "Daniel! Put them down! Step away!" Daniel's chest tightened. He could see it in their stance, hear it in their tone. They would not allow the aliens inside. The law stood like an iron wall between him and safety. The child stirred weakly in his arms, a faint whimper escaping his lips. The sound tore through Daniel like fire. He looked at the guards, then at the mother, her eyes wide with fear, her body ready to collapse. "No," Daniel growled, his voice shaking with fury. "I didn't carry them through hell just to watch them die at your feet." The storm raged on around them. But the greater storm was here at the gates, law against mercy, fear against courage. Daniel took a step forward, his eyes blazing. "If you want to stop me, then you'll have to shoot me first." The storm screamed against the human base walls, but inside the gates a different storm raged. Daniel stood in the snow, his body shaking from exhaustion, the alien child limp in his arms. Beside him, the mother swayed on her feet, her glowing eyes fixed on the guards blocking their way. The guards held their weapons steady. Their visors reflected Daniel's face, hard with defiance. One of them shouted over the storm, "Daniel, step away now! You are breaking galactic law." Daniel's breath came in heavy clouds. His voice cracked with anger and desperation. "Look at him." He lifted the child slightly, showing his frail body. "This is not about law. This is about life. If you stop me, you are killing a child with your own hands." The silence that followed was sharp, broken only by the whine of the wind. The guards shifted uneasily, but they did not lower their weapons. Behind their helmets, some eyes wavered, but duty held them in place. The mother's legs buckled, and she fell to her knees in the snow. She clutched Daniel's coat weakly, whispering in her tongue. He didn't understand the words, but he felt their meaning. She was begging him not to give up. Daniel looked down at her, then at the child in his arms. The boy's small chest rose and fell in fragile breaths, each one weaker than the last. Daniel's heart burned. He had already broken the law. He had already chosen mercy over obedience. There was no turning back. He shouted again, his voice raw. "If we let the law decide everything, then what makes us human?" His words carried across the storm, striking deeper than any weapon. For a moment, the guards did not move. Their eyes flickered between him and the mother and child. One of them lowered his rifle slightly. Another muttered, "It's just a kid." But their commander's voice cut through the hesitation. "Enough, the council will not forgive this. If they cross the gate, Daniel, you will stand trial. And you know what that means?" Daniel's throat tightened. Trial meant exile or worse. His career, his freedom, his life, all of it could be destroyed. He could already imagine the council's judgment, cold and merciless. But when he looked at the child's face, pale and fading, he knew the truth. None of that mattered anymore. He took another step forward. "Then I'll face them. But first, this boy will live." The commander raised his hand, ready to order fire. But in that instant, the child gave a soft cry, weak, thin, yet filled with a kind of innocence that pierced even the harshest heart. The sound cut through the cold like a flame in darkness. The weapons lowered. Slowly, one by one, the guards stepped aside. The commander's jaw clenched, but even he did not speak. The storm outside roared, but the storm within them had broken. Daniel pushed through the gates, his boots heavy, his arms trembling, but his spirit unbroken. He carried the child inside, the mother stumbling behind him. The warmth of the base wrapped around them, a sharp contrast to the frozen world outside. Medics rushed forward. Daniel placed the child gently on a cot. "He needs help now," he barked. The mother clung to her son's hand as the medics moved, their strange instruments glowing. For the first time, she let others touch him because she had seen what mercy looked like. Minutes stretched like hours. The storm outside faded to a dull whisper, as if even the mountains waited for the outcome. Then finally the child coughed, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at his mother, then at Daniel, and whispered a single word in his own language. It was soft, but Daniel understood. "Thank you." The mother's tears spilled freely. She bowed her head, pressing her forehead against Daniel's hand. She could not speak his tongue, but her eyes said everything. Gratitude, trust, and something deeper. An unshakable bond. Daniel stood there, shoulders heavy, but his heart lighter than it had ever been. He knew what would come next. Reports would be filed. The council would summon him. Punishment would fall. But as he looked at the mother and child alive before him, he whispered to himself, it was worth it. His fellow humans watched in silence. Some felt shame for hesitating. Others felt pride in his courage. A few whispered quietly among themselves, maybe he is right. Maybe we are more than law. Maybe this is what makes us human. The storm outside began to break. Clouds shifted, revealing a pale sky touched with light. Snow still lay thick across the mountains, but for the first time in days, hope rose like dawn. The child reached out a small hand toward Daniel. He took it gently, his rough glove against the boy's fragile fingers. The mother placed her hand over both of theirs. Three beings from two different worlds united in that moment. No law could erase it. No punishment could undo it. In the frozen silence of the mountains, humanity had shown its heart. And that heart had saved not only a life, but a future.